On behalf of the Professional Baseball Strength and Conditioning Coaches Society, I'd like to welcome you to the PBSCCS Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Messina. All right, everybody, before we get into this episode, I just wanted to give our sponsor for the episode a quick shout out. Our sponsor this episode is Perform Better. Perform Better has been a longtime partner with the PBSCCS, and obviously they provide a bunch of different options in exercise equipment. If you are interested in getting in touch with them, their contact person is Steve Ward, and he can be contacted at steve.ward@performbetter.com. Again, thank you to Perform Better for sponsoring the episode, and with that, let's get into it. All right, everybody, today's episode of the podcast is going to be another group episode. I will have the guys introduce themselves really quickly, and then we'll just dive in. So just first name, last name, org, position, and anything relevant that you guys want to share, and then we'll dive in.
Go ahead, guys. Better record first. So I'm the last for the 2020. Go ahead, guys.
All right, I'm Dong Lien with the Philadelphia Phillies, Major League Assistant Strength Coach.
Scott Weberg, Toronto Blue Jays, head Major League Strength Coach.
Kiyoshi Momose, Boston Red Sox, head Major League Strength and Conditioning Coach.
Guys, so the theme around this episode, I think this is going to be a fun one, is the 2020 season. Obviously, surface level, everybody knows that we had a 60-game big league season. We started spring training. We stopped. We had a short buildup. And then obviously there was a ton of restrictions with COVID and everything. But I would imagine that a lot of people don't actually know how much was going on behind the scenes to make this season work. And so I really want to get into that. So first question I have for you guys, or just topic of discussion, is the restrictions that were in place and some of the changes to your daily schedule, whether it was something as big as being in a whole new stadium in Buffalo for Scott, or just even small stuff like bus times on the road, training adjustments, anything that was different than your norm and how it affected your day-to-day with the players.
We want to kick it off.
Yeah, I think you should kick it off for us. You got probably the biggest changes being in Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, everything from, when we got shut down initially in spring training to, some of our facilities staying open for a week or two until, everyone was told to go home. And, then it was the uncertainty and, a lot of trying to keep guys ready, trying to manage expectations and, when we'd like to peak coming back in, and, and then it was, the struggle of, we knew it was going to be a shortened summer camp, and what that really meant for us and how we're going to, look at everyone's, current workload at home and what their readiness is going to be coming into a shortened summer training. There was a lot going into it. And then, obviously for us, we weren't allowed to be in our home city, home country for our game. So we did have to shift to our AAA stadium. And, really just for us, it was just really trying to set the stadiums up the best way we could to have the best possible resources. I think we all know, like, being at your home stadium is you have the best resources, and that's what we just wanted to mirror. And luckily we had an incredible staff that really came to bat and built a whole clubhouse, batting cage, weight room, training room. I mean, it was unbelievable. Anybody who's been to Buffalo, I think Messina, you've been there. Dong, you've been there. Yeah. You guys know what Buffalo was like, and it's you cannot recognize the place anymore. So really, what turned from a possible miserable situation really turned into a home field advantage for us. So. But it wasn't obviously without the sacrifice of a lot of people getting there and really working that into a really great facility for us. So.
Yeah, I've been to Buffalo many times, obviously being in the area growing up, and I think the one thing that you guys missed out on was if you would have had fans there, Bills Mafia would probably have been putting each other through tables in that right field area. So, but yeah, it's good that they at least made it, big league caliber for you guys. And the pictures I had seen and some of the stuff on social media, it was, like you said, it was unrecognizable compared to just a year ago being there with Pawtucket. So I'm glad that you guys were able to make the most of that situation. Dong, Yosh, any inputs here?
Yeah, well, hats off to the Blue Jays organization for putting that all together in really short notice. And by the time we heard you guys made that decision to go to Buffalo and had to basically resurrect this facility, hats off to you. It was an amazing job. And I think one thing we've that's my Alexa right there, my phone. No, one thing that we all struggle with is weight room space, and Buffalo was able to create that, which I was absolutely impressed with.
Yeah, I'm piggyback. I'm same way. I mean, hats off to Scott and to your organization. I remember the end of spring training 2.0. You guys came over to Fenway. We're playing two-game exhibition game series, and you guys did not have home yet at that point. And I remember like vividly talking about and how you guys are gonna put together, and then it's just a super late, but after that, you got your organization with the leadership has put everything together, and then we visited. I mean, during the season, we visited you guys later on, and I was super impressed the way you guys put together stadium, everything. The clubhouse. And also weight room. Just some places are very, very talking about the restrictions. Space was limited for the couple organizations, but your space was probably the best space. Nice and wide, and then adequate equipment, and that was impressive. And then outside, it felt so good. I mean, I enjoyed it, just watching games in the weight room during the game. So that was very good. And obviously, the biggest for me was between spring training, original spring training 1.0 and then 2.0. We are just struggling to keep, communicating with the players, making sure who's doing what, because there are so many different scenarios. Some players are able to use the gym. Some players had home gym fully equipped. So, and then some players that didn't have anything, so they had to do like a body weight, type of exercises or program. So our strength coaches just busted their tail off, just communicating, make a lot of communication and individualized program. So that was I think a very, very good learning for us too. And also during the season, spring training during the season, especially during the season, I think the timing, just our day compressed. I mean, usually, we start like at 12 o'clock to the end of the game, but the starting time is always like late, like even 2 o'clock, 2:30, first players showed up. So our, the daily routine got kind of compressed, and then it just, we had to put everything together quickly, and then we couldn't, there's no wasted time for us. So that was the biggest restriction I think I dealt with.
Yeah, for me, it was everything was staggered, and I think you guys experienced that too. Whether it was bus times or just workout times, whether it was pitchers coming in first or position players coming in first during 2.0, everything was staggered and had to have a certain flow to everything in order for us to have enough time to wipe everything down. Everything ended up being like single use only equipment. And so then it had to go to a separate bin for used items that we have, that we would then sterilize. So something that we were so not used to to the extent of, weight room etiquette in the past was just, you use stuff, you hang it back, and at the end of the day, you clean everything. But it was so different in that extent that we had to manage every single piece of equipment that was being touched. And it certainly, those restrictions affected our ability to coach at times, because we were so focused on preventing an outbreak. That was the thing. That was trying to prevent that and communicate, like Kiyoshi said, the importance of getting through to our players, keeping their distances while we're training. What have they been doing? Trying to just match everything up and create a balance so that the players were ready, which is, like you said, workload and such and readiness. Those such a challenge it did present, that's for sure.
During the season, did it get any easier for you guys with players kind of getting into the groove of, I know it's not our normal day-to-day, but just some sort of routine that they might have? Okay, my bus time's always at 3:30. I get to the field, I do this, whatever. Or was it always just like a chaotic feeling of just, I don't have enough time with these guys?
Yeah, I think, we could go on about the negatives of COVID and the shortened season and the quick ramp up and, all those things. But I think ultimately we all knew there was a job to do, and there was going to be no excuses, that we had to figure out how to get guys ready. We had to figure out what fitness level each of them were at moving into a season that really, and that's kind of what we went through with the Blue Jays this year, was there's no excuses. It's going to embrace it. Everything's fine. We're going to get through it. So really, I think the positives that came out of it, one you guys all mentioned, we all kind of got more space. Magically all these huge stadiums opened up, and all of a sudden Fenway has a weight room. And thanks for that, Kiyoshi. I really appreciate it. And
I knew somebody was gonna say that.
And the Phillies opened it up out their back door, and honestly, there was a lot of positive things that came out of it. And one of those things that I really like to highlight is they tried to limit the amount of people in the dugout at one time, which honestly kind of opened up some training time for us with some starting pitchers or pitchers that come out of games. That allowed us a little bit more one-on-one time to keep those things spaced out, because like Dong said, you don't want to be the person responsible for an outbreak, and that outbreak happening in your weight room without wiping a piece of equipment down or not wearing your mask, or those things that we all tried to do to ultimately keep the players and staff safe. So I do try and look at it, and there was a ton of positives that came out of it. And I think if everybody went back and looked, is how did you communicate with your entire staff? I look at it, and I'll just go, and our minor league coordinator Steve Rassel, our minor league strength coach Casey Callison, I would not have been able to get a weight room built in Buffalo without those guys being there on the ground, driving cross country, getting countless nasal swabs, that we really come to find out how good our orgs and how good our people are when it really comes down to just getting the job done. And, it was incredible to watch, I know, especially from our organization standpoint. Didn't answer your question at all, Chris, but you just had to do that.
You know what, I mean, this is one thing I thought about this too. I mean, we had a lot of restrictions, but the one thing was, I think we had much more spaces, and like Scott said, we opened up. We created a new weight room for the visiting side, and then some of the other organizations did the same way, and then we had much more space actually. I mean, obviously we had the limited numbers of players we can hold at the one time, but space was there for us. So it's, especially our situation, everybody knows we have very, very small box, visiting site weight room. But, now we're going to go back to normal. How we going to do? That's a great question. And then, probably, we can use this as a, it was a great situation for everybody, for the visiting teams coming to the Fenway this year. It was very positive. I hear from all teams that the space we created was great. So yeah, space was there, and I think that's a very, very positive site.
You did a great job, Yosh.
Oh, not me. It's an organization. They did a great job. They created space for us, and then so it was good. It was good.
No, we enjoyed it. We enjoyed it when we came in there, and we had that space, and the way you merged the training room with it too. Our trainers enjoyed that. So it was just one big open space, and it allowed players to get any sort of training room work done as well, and then they just head down to the field. But and Scott said it well with regards, it's easy to focus on a lot of the adversities and the negatives that came with this season, this year. But one thing it did teach us, and us as strength coaches had to adjust and adapt quickly, and so did our players, is that, we had our chance to voice our opinions on the matter. And then once we had done that, it was time to move on, and we had to focus on, hey, these are your staggered times. And like you said, we couldn't have accomplished the weight room space for spring training 2.0 without our support staff, like our coordinator, Fury, and Mike Lidge, our AAA strength coach, was there to be able to, we had 2 prep stations on the concourse during that 2.0 camp. And, we had to have staggered groups coming through. And in order to have that station basically manned, you had to have also the weight rooms supervised as well. So you needed to have that staff available where you're used to just having 2 strength coaches and it would handle everything. And but not with 70 players for what we had for camp. And luckily we developed a good routine, and the players understood kind of the flow of things. And then it kind of carried through into the season. Like you said about bus times, that they started getting used to, okay, I only need this amount of time and space to do the work that I need to do to prepare for that day. So they started to learn to be a lot more efficient, which was good, which we always want from our athletes, right? Rather than just utilizing your time to the best of their ability, which they were able to learn to do. But it wouldn't have happened if we didn't have the help, that's for sure.
I want to bounce off of that really quick in regards to training. Comparing your normal season of baseball and how you train the guys during the season and how you prepare them and this and that, how different was it this year based on either lack of time with guys, or some guys coming in really prepared, some guys not being prepared based on what they had available to them? Obviously, it was a short season, so maybe you're looking at, hey, we need quick training adaptations for the sprint versus the long duration season, or even for you, Dong, like you guys had the DH this year when usually you guys don't have a DH. Just anything that changed in your training and kind of how you were able to maybe work around the restrictions that were presented to you with the training.
Things that stood out probably the most was the importance of managing their workload and understanding and talking to them regularly, going back to communication. Because in the past, and I think about it, in the past, you can tell by facial expression how a person might be doing that day. Oftentimes, we're really good at solving those issues as a strength coach when the person walks in and you can tell, their shoulders are hanging and their face is they're just not in the right mindset. With a mask, it brought that sort of challenge, and now we had to make sure we continue to actually voice and speak to our athletes, and using that as a way to monitor workload, how they're handling, fatigue management, etc. All that together. So it was a sprint. It was a sprint, and by no means could you draw things out. You had to get X, Y, and Z accomplished in this day, and you had to, through communication and watching performance workloads, their metrics and such, and then counting for all that stuff. So we probably, maybe in a marathon, you had time to consider all that information, to get to that information. In a sprint, you had to be on top of it and mitigate any sort of problems as it presents itself so quickly in a 60-game sprint. That was, so for us, workload management and really communicating with our athletes was vital.
Yeah, I think the most important thing that we found coming in was just trying to evaluate everyone's, not only fitness level, but baseball fitness level, and really how that was going to correlate to our ramp up. Some things that we did not see coming that ended up coming up was obviously going to Toronto, working on the turf. That was something we probably weren't used to, having three straight weeks on the turf, where guys hadn't had that adaptation at all. So really we were managing that a little bit more than we were, managing fitness levels. It was reacting to the acute stress of a shortened camp and the change in stimulus that was the turf. as opposed to setting up for a 60-game sprint. So really what that allowed us to do was just adjust some of our intensities and volumes and really try and focus on, what the players have been missing out on, which was intensity. We can get all the volume training we want, whether we have load or not, but really what these guys were missing was velocity. It was probably missing high-speed running, being in their cleats, seeing live pitching, game speed throwing. So the speed aspect is something that, with a guy who had a current fitness level that was, passable, was really trying to get that intensity and speed up to really match the volume that at least we prescribed while we were away.
I think to me that a couple of things. There's, obviously coming into sprint training, second sprint training 2.0, there's so many uncertainty. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going on. So the coaching stuff, front office, I feel like they're opening up more. They had a tendency to listen to our opinion more and used on the sports scientist data more, and we're able to manage the volume, intensity just based on the numbers we have. And then coaching stuff was, the normal season, they know what to do. They have been doing this for 30 years, 35 years, whatever, for a long time. Then they kind of know, okay, this is what we need to do, sprint training, and then this is how we're going to start the season, and blah, blah, blah. But this year, nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows how we're going to react body-wise in 60-game sprints. So I think they opened up more, and we had much more conversation with the coaching stuff, more than normal year. And then I think they were more open to listen to us based on what we have to say. That's one. And number two, I think players are understanding more. Like me too. I think this year more like a systematic. Everybody, the players come in, just spend like 15 to 20, not even 20 minutes, 15 minutes almost every day in the weight room, get ready. Just including, activation, lifting, stuff like that. Just a short period of time, but they're consistently, our compliance was much higher this season than compared to in the past. So they understood that, and then they liked the way it was, just a quick in and out, but hit whatever the target we need to get it done for that week or whatever it is. But I think those two things are the biggest for me.
And I think another positive we can all look at here is that everyone knew this was going to be a challenge. We'd all seen it from other sports that have had shortened camps or no camps or shortened season, that we all knew it was going to be a challenge. And again, the beautiful thing I think we all looked at was everyone in the org came together to really, dive into these things. Players were probably a little more apt to dive into some things and look at fatigue and, really trying to understand, like, what is fatigue? If we're talking peripheral, if we're talking CNS, what are we doing to manage those things? Because in 60 games, 1 win is worth 3 wins. And, now it's the intensity level is that much higher in each one of these games. So what can we do, as opposed to a day where this might be a great day for this guy to rest? It might be, how can we change his system to get over the type of fatigue that he's facing? So again, I thought it was a lot of positive things that came out of it that really brought orgs together and different departments together to understand what workload management really actually means.
Yeah, we're kind of rolling with that. And we're in December now. So I've wanted to do this podcast episode since the season, but I wanted to give some time for people to kind of like take a step back, look at all the chaos that they just went through, breathe a little, and then just kind of, okay, now I can reflect on this. And given the time that you've had to reflect, and obviously we've already talked about some of the good stuff, what are the other lessons or things that you're going to take into this season and beyond that, hey, I never thought about this, but now that COVID hit, I actually want to do this more? I would assume Zooming is probably not one of those things with how much Zooming we've had to do, but maybe some of the other things that you've taken that you're like, yeah, I actually will use this in the future, whether it's back to normal or not.
I think to me the biggest thing is, hey, we can compound, we can make our day a little bit more shorter. you know, in the past, they're like, I had players show up like, I don't know, even 12:30. You know, eat there and then sit there in the clubhouse, just looking at their phones for a long time, and then get treatment, lift it, and then sit down again for a long time. And you know, I mean, again, this is a, you know, the sports of routine, so I understand, so I respect those routines. But you know, we learned that, okay, we can make it, and we can show up at 2 o'clock and then get everything is done. Because I mean, obviously 162 games for a long time, and you know, the spring training, all the marathon type of season, you need to, you know, you need to be able to put your switch on and off, you know, as much as you can, and then you know, spend less time at the field as much as possible, spend more time with the family, whatever it is. So I think the biggest thing is we can change the mentality that, you know, we can spend short period of time and then high good intensity and efficient. We can be more efficient.
Yeah, I'd look back at it and really, like, I lend it to really one thing the entire time, and that was just the importance of communication across the organization. You know, across from your R&D team, your coaching staff, your front office. You know, the different performance departments. You know, again, I was thoroughly impressed and really proud of our team within the organization to how well we all came together for one common goal. You know, and obviously the word workload management became the most popular topic across sports. But really how people did those things were completely different. And, you know, I think we all took away some things, some positive or negative communication, or things that we would do maybe a little bit differently. But I would definitely say the communication it brought about for our organization was very impressive, and, you know, really something we were pretty proud of.
Yeah, I think going forward, I mean, one thing you know, the virus has done is kind of forced everybody to have an open mind, because you didn't know what was going to happen. So you had to be open to other departments sharing, and what were you seeing, and taking account into that, you know, that information, and also understanding like how important the human connection is, just having conversations on a regular basis. And because of it, and like you said, we jokingly say, like, you know, as much as you don't want to Zoom as much as you have done in this past year, but there are, you know, there are benefits to connecting with a group of individuals. Maybe it's your set of athletes or department, and not having to drive into the place, get into the ballpark earlier, 2 hours earlier than usual, because you had to go through uh, a meeting of the other team, you know, for information on the other team. Could you have done it at the hotel, for instance? You know, everyone's got to get up at a certain time, eat breakfast at the hotel, breakfast, brunch, whatever you want to call it. Could you do the meeting there in a very non-informal way to allow them to absorb the information that they're, you know, that you're giving them, they process it, and then when they hit the bus time, they go there, they work with intention, you know, and then from there everything just kind of flows into a nice rhythm, and you go right into a game, rather than everything just being forced down into you, you know, and it's already stressful as it is. The sport is stressful. We're all stressed out doing things, and all of a sudden you're just trying to jam everything in one moment. It takes time to process. Just like just like your question alone, you know, you had time to process everything that's going on. And same thing with your competitors, whoever you're competing against that day. It definitely has, definitely wasn't easy, but at the same time there's a lot of, you know, there are some good takeaways from this season.
Yeah, two of the notes that I have that we haven't talked about yet that I am curious to hear your guys' thoughts on. Number one was testing, and how frequently you were testing and how that might have affected your daily schedule with guys, things like that. And then the other thing was the food situation, which if I understand correctly, is it all had to be like single-use containers, and there was no like buffet style food like there usually is. And if you guys had any issues with players, maybe with weight loss or weight gain during the season that don't usually have those issues, how you were able to like mitigate that kind of situation, like maybe communicating with the nutritionist or whatever. But those two things I had on my list were the testing and how that affected you guys, and the food situation, and even like supplements as well. Like I know the supplements, you weren't really supposed to have a protein tub out. It had to be like all individual packets and stuff. And just how you guys were able to navigate those situations.
For me, it was really easy. We have a great nutrition department that takes care of all our food service and supplementation now. So a lot of it though was the challenging part of the single use and, making sure that everything, when we go back to contact tracing and everything, that again, it's not happening with food service or supplementation. So I would say a part of it was a little bit easier for us too, because, they're really, with the restrictions put on us, you really couldn't have a lot of those things. It was probably more difficult, I'd say, for the dugout and just having some of those, refuels during the game that probably had to be a little more calculated and spaced out and individualized. So I'd definitely say that one.
I think the food situation was, a little bit complicated for us. We had the first year major league nutritionist / executive chef. He was, first year with us and with this situation. So he was, he has never worked in a baseball situation. So it's just, it was hard for him to learn a lot of things with a lot of restrictions, but I think they have done a great job, and that individually, one thing they were able to do it because of the package was individually prepared. They're able to change the volume or portion or volume portion, or like what type of food they can put into the individual players base. So that was something I think it was easier for them because of it's just everything is individualized package. Supplement, it was at the beginning it was a little bit more extra work for us, for the strength and conditioning coaches, just making sure that the players are not taking supplement from the commonly or don't share the supplement. So that's just it's a huge difference from in the past. So we wanted to make sure that the packages are all individualized, or we control the supplement station. So but once that get used to it, it was smooth, and then I didn't think we had any issues.
Yeah, we're very fortunate too. Nutrition, our registered dietitians did an outstanding job for us, and they covered that with regards to both supplementation and food needs. We have the same thing, a chef on our club with a sous chef, and we were able to kind of do everything out of our diamond club. So that was kind of the eating space for our athletes, and they could order from their phone basically, which was another convenience for the athlete, which was great. Hats off to them for the work that they did. And we were stuck at, so we had that 3 weeks, right, to ramp up. And then we were stuck at home for another week because of the outbreak. So they basically 1 month straight of work for our chef and our sous chef and their staff there too. So they had to manage basically 70 athletes for basically 4 weeks. And they did a tremendous job. And same thing, single-use meals, of course, like the package containers and the cutlery and all that stuff too. And it is different, but it was something we just all had to adapt to real quickly. With testing, we stayed with the standardized testing for us. We did body composition, of course. We did grip strength, but we didn't really jump our athletes because the ramp up was just such a short amount of time. We didn't jump test them for the fact that that itself, quick ramp up, and we just didn't know. Not everybody had access to everything while they were home, and so everyone was at different levels, and we had to kind of bring them back into what we felt was a place where they can perform on a regular basis to have the durability there. So it's we kept it fairly minimal this time around. Range of motion as well was included into that, but that's where we were with testing wise.
So yeah, go ahead, Scott.
No, I was just going to touch on the testing part. I didn't hear that.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Zoom cuts out, it happens. Yeah, I mean, I think what we really tried to do was look at things. If we had a history with a player, a history of certain assessments or performance tests, really what we wanted to find out was, the things that they appear most sensitive to, that we would want to retest those, whether it be, a Y balance, a grip, a jump, any of those things. But really, as opposed to throwing the full battery at everybody, it was really kind of focused on an individualized basis on what each player really needed to see from a sensitivity or a fitness standpoint. And, I think that's, again, another positive that came out of this, is it showed, the adjustments we can make to our assessment and performance testing process that, before I think we all get caught in it, we just continue to add and add and add. And, all it does is it just, we get test fatigue. And I think, when we were on the discussion of monitoring, I think that's the one thing that, we fail to realize, is that there is a test fatigue, both to the staff member performing that intake and also to the player. So, we did have some initial thoughts of monitoring and things that we were going to do with our athletes. And honestly, we had to pivot on a lot of them, while still getting the information that, could help us adjust some programming for them. And I think that's the biggest communication piece that we had, was we're not doing workload management and monitoring to take any time away from the athlete. Is we're trying to find the best way to prep them and help them recover. The goal of every performance staff is to have your best players play 162 games. And now this year we're at 60 with a shortened spring. So it was mostly about, how can we adjust this guy's prep, whether it's his pre-day, how can he get his baseball skill work in, and how can he be ready to play each game and get him recovered for the next day, knowing that we do have those restrictions. So, we have to get players out of the clubhouse within an hour and a half. What can we set up at the hotel? What can we set up in each of their homes for those things? So I think, that positive actually definitely came out of it.
So to sum up the call, I would say there was a lot of positives that came out of this season. It was a sprint instead of a marathon, so maybe more focus on recovery, individualization. There were some limitations with space. But the thing is, I love all three of you guys. You're all very positive about this, very optimistic, hey, I'm taking this out of this. So my last question to you, and this one is going to be the one that I hope you guys don't hold back on. Given the choice, would you rather have a 60-game COVID-restricted season or a full 162 season with no restrictions?
Is that a question?
So everybody I've talked to has said they prefer the full 162, which I know is a grind in itself, but I'm curious on what your guys' thoughts are on this.
Now, the big decision here is, do we get the Fenway weight room COVID or non-COVID? That will determine which way I go. There's a lot of games in that division.
Does Yosh give you the good bar or the rusty barbell in that weight room?
The Babe Ruth bar or the Manny Ramirez bar?
Are we going to Buffalo or are we going to Toronto? How about that one?
162 all day long. I think that's what kind of gets. I think, we've all been in this game, a good amount of time, and I think we all thrive for that, to get to the top level of sport. But really, that kind of Iron Man mentality of baseball is, we want to play 162. We look up to people, guys get signed for playing 162 all these years in a row. And, I got to work with Freddie Galvis for a year. He had 4 years of 162 games. You look up to those people. You want to learn from those people. How do you manage, every day, the mentality of playing every day, that just, it's tough to see now. You don't see it a lot. So the nice thing was, everyone wanted to play all 60. It was pretty difficult, but I think it lined us all up for next year, going, what did we learn this year that's going to help us maybe break things into 3 60-game sprints as opposed to a 162. Again, it just kind of opens up different ways of thinking for 162. Did I cut out?
Nope, you're good. Definitely 162 games plus playoffs. Definitely. It's a I think it's the fun part of our job to, how can we keep those guys, playing 162 games. Like Scott said, it's not not many player plays 162 games anymore, but how 158 or whatever the game, how can we keep these guys 158 games at their maximum level, or even the starters, 32 plus, 32 starts and then 200 innings. That was kind of, just I still talk to our starters. Hey, if you're starters, I know that different organizations have different philosophy, but our job to make, the horses as the starters. I'm expecting these guys 30 plus starts and then 180 minimum, and then hopefully 200 innings. So that's just the beauty of our job to, to help players to see just a long, after 162 games, and then some. Still, you gotta go after that. We have to do something more to get to play more, 20 games or whatever the games more. That's I think that's the beauty of it. Definitely 162 games.
Yeah, same here. 162. 162 with a lot of really good stuff that happened. Give me Buffalo's setup for the visiting weight room. Give me that for spring training. It reminds me of Venice Beach. Like the guys are training outside. All the equipment is outside, right? Give me that. Give me more space for our visiting team when they come and visit us, in Philadelphia. Give them that more space. Have some open air space. But 162, just because that's baseball. That's baseball. Like you said, you want your workhorses to work. You want your position players to cover as many games as possible. There's just the beauty of that. And the fact of not having to have to wear something in front of you. And it's part of what makes us good strength coaches over, the ones who had a chance to do it for quite some time is the ability to develop relationships and friendships and bonds, and to an extent of and being invited to a wedding, et cetera, because you've helped them in their career. But it's because of that relationship, be able to see each other, be able to read each other's, attitudes, and you're having a bad day, having a good day, what's wrong, you okay? That's part of coaching. That's the art of coaching. And I would take 162 and be able to try to work with that athlete, work with my fellow staff members, and try to solve these problems and manage our athletes and communicate with them so they can see that I genuinely care, right? Because they have to trust in us, because we have players, and I actually will mention it. Brandon Workman came over from Boston, and great routine, loved it. And only one day during the time that he had arrived, had he seen me with my mask off, and he said, I wouldn't have known you in an airport or even outside on the street or in the hotel who you were, because all I could see was basically from, your nose up. And because Dong, you never take off your mask. So I would never have known. So I would have hate after, a year or whatever number of years with that athlete to say, I don't even know who he was really. I just knew he cleaned everything. He gave me instructions to do what to run, how to work out and stuff, but I don't even know what he looks like. I just want to be looked at. 162.
Yeah, I think one thing too that a lot of people may not know about baseball, I think all these guys would agree, when the schedule comes out for the next year, we're all kind of geeks where we go look at the schedule and we go, where are our 3 city road trips? Where's our long homestand? Where's the All-Star break? Are we starting on the road, leaving on the road? Where do we plan out our deloads? Where do we plan our peaks? When do we have our West Coast, our East Coast travel? All the things that are pretty cool things when you're really looking at your annual plan. And again, every plan adjusts, but we know there's a couple things in the schedule. We know we're going to have a cross-country road trip, and you're going to hit 2 time zones. You're going to have at least 1 3-city road trips. You're going to have at least 1 20 straight gamer. And you're going to have a long homestand where hopefully you can bring your family in so you can see them for a little bit. But all those really probably inside things that a lot of people don't think about is it's pretty cool when you look at the schedule. And, you know, I get to see when I go to Fenway, so I get to see Kiyoshi. So that's my highlight of my year. So
I know. I'm sure you're gonna say, okay, we're gonna go to Fenway this deload this week. We
it's a deload every time we go.
yeah.
The same as Wrigley, though. It's okay.
Good for seeing Yosh, not good for the training. But maybe we'll get the 162 no restrictions with extra space at Fenway. And then best of all worlds.
Done.
Guys, I appreciate you coming on, opening up for me, and just reflecting on what was a very crazy season. And honestly, like, just the fact that we got through a season, we got it done, and it worked to the best that we could just speaks volumes to everything that you guys did. And, you know, behind the scenes, a lot of people don't know everything that went on, and that was why I wanted to have this chat. And so thank you to you guys, obviously, for coming on and speaking with me. And thank you for everything you did to just make a baseball season actually work. I think people needed baseball in their lives, and I think it was as good as it could have been given the situation. So, guys, I appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to talking with all you guys real soon.
Appreciate it, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Happy holidays, guys. Everybody.
Happy holidays, fellas.
All right, everybody, that concludes our episode with Kiyoshi, Scott, and Dong. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I thought it was something that really needed to be discussed. Obviously, a lot of people saw that we had a 60-game season this year, but they may not know everything that was going on behind the scenes. Being able to hear the stories from three of the guys in the big leagues and their different perspectives on how things went really should paint a better picture for everyone on how different it really was and how hard it was to pull off even just a 60-game season, and how thankful we should be that we did get through the 60-game season. 3 things that I took from the guys in this episode: find the positives anywhere you can, prepare when you can and adjust as needed, and find ways to be more efficient with your work. Before we sign off, I just want to give one more shout out to our sponsor for the episode, Perform Better. Again, reach out to Steve Ward if you have any needs for equipment or otherwise that Perform Better can provide you at steve.ward@performbetter.com. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll talk to you again on the next one.